I had a video request come in from YouTube user Penny123456789101112. You know, some people on YouTube really know how to pick usernames that are clever and roll off the tongue. That one really doesn't, so I'm only going to say it the once. I hope you caught all that. Anyway, they wrote in with a question asking if I could make a video on how to clean controls in a piece of audio equipment or practically anything else that has controls that might get dirty over time. The principle upon which most controls, such as switches or knobs, which are typically driving potentiometers or devices that vary their resistance depending on where they're set, the typical problem with these is that over time oxidation builds up because of the electricity flowing through the control. Depending on how much current there is flowing through the control and how much stress it's under and how high a quality of a control it is, the condition can take a long time to get bad. Now what I have here is a very nice Sansui stereo tuner amplifier model 210. This is a very basic, I think 30 watt per channel Sansui receiver. This was something I bought many years ago at the same public TV and radio benefit sale where I got the Technics SA929 receiver. And this thing is in beautiful shape. The wood cabinet is almost perfect. The front is very nice. There's just the most minor signs of use. But the problem is this thing has dirty controls, and dirty controls can first be identified by working them and listening or watching for a change in the case of video equipment. In the case of audio equipment like this, turning the volume control results in a crackling noise and maybe even a tendency to go to full volume or no volume at all. Now if you have a bad switch, this can often manifest itself in strange behavior when you're not apparently touching the unit. But if you go and rap on it or tap on it, you might affect a change. Likewise, if you work the switch, you might affect a change. Now you have to be sure of your diagnosis here, because one of the things that can happen is you can have bad solder joints or components that, you know, are flaky, and you're touching the unit or jarring it or shaking it or bumping it somehow changes the behavior. So be sure that you're going after the right problem. Chances are if you turn a knob or flip a switch and the audio or the video improves noticeably or suddenly degrades, you are looking at a dirty control. So what to use to clean up controls? Well, by far and away, a lot of people would tell you that the absolute best product out there is a product from Keg Laboratories known as Deoxit. Now, Deoxit is pretty good stuff, but it's not cheap, and it's not something you can just walk into a store and buy on a pinch. Probably one of the worst products you can use is WD-40. WD-40 is absolutely not intended for cleaning controls. Might it get you by in an emergency? Yeah, it might, but it's really not ideal, and it might dissolve some plastics or types of controls and leave you in a real world of hurt, because on a 30-year-old piece of equipment, a 10-gang variable switch may not be something that you can easily or even remotely come close to replacing. In fact, if you need to get something working quickly and you have no other option, sometimes just repeatedly actuating the control or operating it aggressively may temporarily clear up the problem, and that'll get you through in an emergency, but you shouldn't do too much of it because you can really put a lot of wear on the potentiometer or the switch in a very short period of time. There are other things you can use as well. If you have a Radio Shack or electronic components store in your area, chances are they sell some things that can help you with this problem. Now, Radio Shack sells two that are particularly good. They sell their classic control contact cleaner and lubricant, and this is, what is this? This is Radio Shack catalog number. Let's see if the catalog number's on here anywhere. Should be someplace. 64-4315. The other product they sell that might be interesting is catalog number 64-057. Now, only one of these is billed as a contact cleaner and lubricant. The other one is actually billed as an anti-corrosive lubricant spray. That's this one over here. But this one is an unexpected bargain in disguise, something that I was recently turned on to by someone else, because this stuff, although it contains a couple other things like mineral oil, one of the key ingredients in this particular product is Deoxit. So it's a cheap, at about $4 and change per can, way of getting a hold of Deoxit cleaner, which is ordinarily much more expensive. The stuff they sell that's purpose-built is mostly mineral oil and freeze spray. It used to have a number of other ingredients, but it appears those are now gone. This stuff is about $10 and change per can. A little bit of either one goes a long way. You buy a can of this stuff, and it ought to be enough to do many pieces of equipment. So now you know what to use, or what you can use at least, to clean a control. How do you actually go about doing it? To clean a control, you'll need to get inside it. It sounds easy, right? Well, sometimes it's easier said than done. What you're looking at here is the source selector control in this Sansui 210 receiver. And while it looks fairly daunting in there, and certainly wouldn't be fun to unsolder and repair any of those wires, this is actually the best possible circumstance. This control is completely open-bodied. Now, I haven't noticed any problems with this control, and the fact that the wipers make pretty tight and somewhat abrasive contact as this control is operated means that its likelihood of becoming troublesome isn't very high. So let's just leave this control alone. The next best circumstance is a control like this, the volume control. Now, if I push this bundle of wires out of the way, you can see that the volume control is mostly sealed, but has an opening that, luckily for us, is right at the top. That opening can be used to gently spray some cleaner inside there. These switches, on the other hand, are sealed from the backside, so the only way to probably get cleaner into them is through the front. These two controls here for bass and treble are actually not as convenient to work with because their openings are on the bottom. However, this does lend to greater dust resistance since dust tends to fall down and not turn the corner and go inside the control. So if dust is causing the problem, these controls are more likely to be immune to it. This power switch on the end here is the worst possible situation. This power switch looks to be almost completely sealed. Replacement may be the only option, although sometimes, if you're very, very careful, you can bathe the control in contact cleaner and hope that some will get in there and then clean up any excess afterwards. Or you can carefully open the control and try to induce cleaner into it that way. I have also heard of some people taking small drill bits and usually a hand-operated brace and bit thing, and going into a control that way, going very carefully and very slowly so they don't drill into the actual working parts of the control. So let's go ahead and let's take our anti-corrosive deoxit-based cleaner and spray here, put a little straw on the can, and then I'll go ahead and clean the control. Now remember, the important thing here is to apply this stuff sparingly. You don't need to flood the control in it, and you certainly don't need to go crazy. A simple ought to be just fine. If you have an especially stubborn or really dirty control, you may have to do it repeatedly. But wait and see how the performance of the control is before you do it again. Now you may notice, those of you who have been paying the most attention here may have noticed that I didn't mention a balance control on this Sansui. That's because for this Sansui, balance is controlled by two different potentiometers that have been ganged together and a unique dual knob out on the front. So there are two potentiometers here that will require treatment. Again, just a brief little spray is all you need. When you're done spraying, turn the set around or go to where you can operate the control and work it back and forth several times. Just like I'm doing right now with the volume control. You may notice that the control appears to ease up in operation, especially if the cleaner that you're using contains some sort of lubricating oil. Give it a couple of minutes to dry out. Don't rush to plug it in and power it on right away. But after a couple of minutes have passed, go ahead and make a careful test and see if the original trouble exists or not. Anyway, when you're done, you should be greeted with a control that operates properly without making any funny noises or cutting in or cutting out or going to full or minimum volume all of a sudden, just like this one now does. That's just SiriusXM's radio application on the iPhone buffering because I'm uploading another video right now. So hopefully it'll be back to the real world soon. There you have it, a very quick guide to cleaning the controls of your audio, video, or other electronic equipment. Thanks for watching, and if you have a comment, leave one below.